Hey guys, it's Mr. Sarley. I had two students make this video, but this homework actually goes over a lot of things that I haven't taught yet, and some of the answers were wrong. So rather than kind of have it be confusing, I'm just going to do the video for the first page, and then I'll cut back to the girls who are going to do the second page. So they started off with this secret word. Yeah, so thanks for that. It was pretty much Johnson who did that to me, and now everyone's calling me lonely. But let's go over this. So starting off in this problem, we have 5 times 1/4. 5 times 1/4 is basically like saying 5 groups of 1/4, which is identical to this. It's the same problem. It's like we're adding 1/4 to itself 5 times. If we do 5 times 1/4, that's going to equal 5/4, and you could have written it like 5 over 1 times 1 over 4, multiplied that across, and you would have gotten exactly 5/4. And again, down here, the exact same thing. Imagine we had a whole. It's broken up into 4 parts. We have 1, 2, 3, 4/4, and then 1 more fourth. That's 5/4. And both of these answers are equal to 1 whole and 1 extra fourth. Alright, so C and D, the girls got D incorrect, and it's a really common mistake, so I want to go over it. But first, for 2.5 plus 2.5 plus 2.5, if you were to add just the wholes together, 2 plus 2 plus 2, that would equal 6. And then if you were to add 1/2 plus 1/2 plus 1/2, you would get 3/2. But 3/2 is the same as 1 whole and 1/2. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that 6 and I'm going to add it with the 1 and 1/2, and that would give you a total of 7 wholes and 1/2 left over. So in D is actually the exact same problem as C, because that's what multiplication means. We have 3 groups of 2.5. So if you were to write it in expanded form, it would look identical to this. But a strategy is to use the distributive property. First you multiply 3 times the 2, and then you do 3 times the 1/2. So really, it's like we're solving this other problem of 3 times 2 and 3 times 1/2, and we're just going to add that together. So just like up over here, when you do 3 groups of 2, that gives you 6. And then when you do 3 times the 1/2, that's the same as 3/2, which is exactly what we got up over here. And using the same process, we know that 6 and 3/2 would be the same as 7 wholes and 1/2 left over. So the common mistake would be just to do 3 times 2 and then get 6 and then say the answer is 6.5, but really you also have to do the 3 times the 1/2, which would give you this extra 3/2, which together gives you 7.5. So I hope that made sense. Alright, here, this is something I haven't gone over at all in 7th grade, but I'm going to start using our homework as a way to go over it because it's really important for 7th grade. So we need to be able to multiply fractions. Multiplying fractions is one of the easiest skills to do because all you have to do is multiply across. You don't have to make any denominators common. We're not trying to add or subtract anything. All we do is multiply across. So if we have 1/2 times 1/4, just multiply the numerators and the denominators. So 1 times 1 would give us a numerator of 1. 2 times 4 would give us a denominator of 8. And then the same sign rule that works for integers also works with fractions. So we have different signs. One is positive and one is negative. Different signs, I'm getting it, it's going to be a negative. So you should get -1/8. Because Mr. Sarley makes at least 3 mistakes a day, apparently I just wrote the exact same problem twice, so this answer would also be -1/8. Moving on to G. G looks a lot more complicated, but Because multiplying fractions is pretty straightforward, it's actually not going to be hard to find the answer. So first, I'm going to ignore the negative signs and just do 3/4 times 2/3. And to multiply fractions, you can just multiply the numerators and denominators. 3 times 2 would give us a numerator of 6. 4 times 3 would give us a denominator of 12. And if we look at the original problem, they were both negatives, and we know that if you're multiplying or dividing and both numbers are negative, your answer is going to be positive. So this answer is 6/12. But you should probably simplify it a little bit, just like we were doing in class today. And if you were to simplify 6/12, you would see that that's equivalent to a 1/2. Alright, and by far the trickiest problem on the front is this last one, but since multiplying fractions is so easy, if we just take this decimal and write it as a fraction, this problem is no longer difficult. So we have -2/3 and then times, but instead of writing 25 hundredths, I know that 25 hundredths is the same as 1/4 or a quarter. And now the problem is a lot more straightforward, because on top, I'm going to multiply 2 times 1 to get 2. And for the denominator, I'm going to do 3 times 4 is 12. And then, since this is a negative and this is a positive, those are different signs, I'm getting it, it's negative. And if you simplify it just a little bit more, you would get -1/6. Alright, sorry to take over your video, girls. I should have gone over this a little bit before you ahead of time, but I'm going to go back to Josefina and Emily as they explain the back.
Thing is that we need to find how much is in how much is in 1 hour. So we're going to do 4/5 and 12, and then you're going to write 60 and 25ths. So then you know that 12 times 5 gives you 60, so you're going to multiply that, and you're going to do the same thing on top to get 25ths, and that is equivalent to 4. So then for B, what you have to do if you want to find how much is in 1 day or 24 hours is kind of like the same thing that we did before. So 1/5 and 1, and you are going to start over here. You're going to multiply 1 times 60 to get 60, and 1/5 times 60 to get 65ths. And then what we're going to do is, since this is how much he made in, like, I think 1 hour or 1 minute, I'm not sure, but then so you're going to multiply 60/5 times 24, which will give you 1,440, which is your final answer.